What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to another episode of the Fierce Framework, where we talk about becoming fierce through messy action, baby steps, and cultivating your confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm an ADHD kid with a dream to see more women living lives that we're excited about. I want to see us breaking out of the mold society tells us we're supposed to fit into and start living life more on our own terms, where we're in line with our values, we're pursuing our purpose, and we're making our dreams turn into realities. What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Today, I want to dig into what often holds us back from taking that first step. So, we're going through the framework. We've talked about focus and starting with kind of one thing so you can focus on where you're at, like in this season. And then the next part of the framework is initiate, which is what we've been talking about with taking action and taking that first step and initiating action, right? So we are wrapping that up and we're about to move into empower, talking about how to kind of support yourself and put things in place in your life to empower you to continue taking steps towards your goals and making progress towards making your dreams come true. So, this is kind of a transition episode because I want to talk about things that hold us back from taking that action. So, you've gone through focus, you figured out what you want to start with, where you want to put your energy during this season, and then you've been going through initiate, right? And figuring out how to break things down and how to take a big goal and break it down into smaller goals and kind of milestones and then baby tiny action steps so that you can be taking action towards your goal. So we've been talking a lot about how to break things down and figuring out how to find something that's like big enough to where it's kind of scary and exciting, but small enough to actually do that and take that leap. So, a lot of the time, once we've figured out the action we need to take, we can still struggle with actually taking the action. And that's what I want to talk about today. We've addressed some of the common things like maybe it's too big. And so maybe we need to break it down some more to make it a little bit more manageable and something that we can accomplish or take action towards today instead of waiting until, maybe we've grown a little bit more or developed some more like skills or acquired more resources to then be able to take it in the future. So we're not going to reiterate that part today. If what's holding you back is breaking it down, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to some other episodes about that. We cover it, I think, pretty extensively. So, today, though, I want to focus on three things that hold us back once you've decided that you've decided on the action that you want to take and you know what you want to do. And there's still some like you're just not able to get yourself to take that leap, right? So, one of the things is just an overwhelm of how much there is to do. I think sometimes once we realize we kind of hone in on what it is we want to do, we can be overwhelmed by the magnitude of what is really on our hearts. A lot of us have like been raised to keep ourselves small and to play by this certain set of rules that society or your family or whoever like restrictive guidelines that have been put in place for us or we're constantly encouraged to kind of shrink ourselves to fit into some box or some mold to look like everybody else or some cookie cutter of the ideal of whatever we're supposed to be. And so when we get really real with ourselves and we're working through what it is we actually want, sometimes we can be so overwhelmed by how big it is that we just want to like shut down and it can be really scary. And that's part of why we've talked so much about breaking things down. But also, I think part of that is grief over not starting sooner. Like, once you realize how big your dreams are and how expansive of a life you want for yourself, there can be a lot of grief and sadness and even beating yourself up sometimes, which I don't encourage. But I mean, I've been there. Kind of having this reaction of like, oh my gosh, dude, there's so much to do. And I'm just now getting started, in my 30s or my 40s or wherever I'm at. And man, if I would have only been able to start in my 20s and not care what people think, or if I would have only, been able to branch out earlier or, whatever it was, sometimes we just don't know better. right? We're constantly learning from the people and the society around us. So much of what we learn as a child into adulthood is picked up from just seeing how the people around us operate and learning norms and observing and realizing like how people are, and then inferring that, oh, that's how I'm supposed to be as well. And then there's constant like encouragement and support, and when you're doing the right thing that other people want you to do. And then there can be negative consequences and discipline and pain and problems when you're doing things that people don't want you to do. So I want to encourage you to have some grace with yourself. It really is a journey and almost like an awakening to kind of break out of that mold and admit to yourself and maybe even the people around you that you do want something different. And so I want to encourage you, looking back, like once you've had that realization, it can be really easy if you're anything like me to beat yourself up and be like, dude, I was such an idiot. Like I should have known better. There were signs that there were breadcrumbs that I could have followed a decade ago, years ago, and I was just too scared, or I didn't think that that was something that I could actually do, or I was too worried about, what my parents would say, or what my friends would say, or what my teachers would say, or whatever. And man, I just really wish like I would have started along this journey so much earlier. And it's okay to grieve. I think that's a real loss. I forget where I read it, but I was reading a book about grief, and one of the things that was really validating to me was it's okay to grieve something that you thought you were going to have. Like it's okay to grieve a life that you thought you were going to have that now you're realizing that you're not going to have. So if you had been dreaming about, a white picket fence or the American dream or like whatever it was, and then realizing like I don't even want that, and now the dream, like the life that I actually want for myself, is going to take longer to get to than it would have before because I'm just now starting. And so I want to, for whatever it's worth, I want to give you permission to grieve, and I want to encourage you to not beat yourself up during that process. There's so many reasons why you weren't able to start before, or you didn't even know you had options. Like there's so many reasons. And you already know, those reasons. If you're really looking, like it's not because you're an idiot or because you're a scaredy cat, like there were reasons and probably real life consequences for why you didn't branch out and follow what was really on your heart a long time ago. Okay, so it's okay to grieve and to be sad that, society isn't set up in a way to where we were encouraged to pursue what really mattered to us earlier and that we're just now getting started. But don't beat yourself up. Okay? It's unfortunately it's a totally normal thing. That's part of why I'm so passionate about what I do, is because there's so many people, myself included, who are in that same boat, and it wasn't until like later in life when I started realizing like there are so many other options and I don't have to follow these steps that were laid out for me by someone else. So you are not alone. And I want to encourage you that now is still earlier than later, right? That saying of, yesterday was the best time to start and the second best time is today. That still applies. So once you're done grieving and you're ready to move forward, I want to encourage you that now is better than waiting. And so you're literally starting as soon as you can. Whatever happened, happened. Whatever held us back before, held us back before, but we're here now. And so what we can control is what we can do now. Okay. So that's the first thing I feel like is just like the overwhelm and the grief that can come up a lot of the time. And then the other two are a little more like commonly talked about. I feel like the fear of failure, I think, is a huge one and very relatable. But also, like, kind of tied into that, the fear of being seen trying and being seen caring about something. And this can be really scary. And I think they're tied together because it's like, I don't know when we started deciding that it was super cringe to try and like really embarrassing to care too much. It breaks my heart and it makes my life hard to live. But I think it's a reality for a lot of us that for whatever reason, we feel like it's really embarrassing and weird and cringe, whatever word you want to use, to be seen like really putting in an effort in something. It's like we have this idea that Once we reach adulthood, which whatever that is to you, right? Whether that was 18, 21, 30 something, younger, whatever. Once we reach adulthood, like we're not allowed to learn anything new anymore. We're supposed to just already know everything, and that is not realistic. Okay? Like it's just not. And in a perfect world, right, we're going to be even in a less than perfect world, in an ideal lifetime, you're going to be learning and growing your whole life. Okay? So if we can embrace this idea that it's okay to try and fail, because I think like the caveat we make is like, okay, you can try as long as you do really well really quickly. It's okay to be seen trying something as long as like you get good at it fast. But that isn't how it happens most of the time. Most of the time, you're trying and you suck at something and you're not great, and then you're getting slowly better. But the progress is so incremental that like you don't even notice until one day somebody else notices and mentions how far you've come, or that you're you've got yikes, you've made so much progress that you finally realize like, oh my gosh, I've grown, I've developed, I'm getting so much better at this now. That is normal. That is typical to have such small, minuscule progress as you go, as you go, as you go. I've actually just read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks about it more like on a larger scale. But even like epidemics, which is kind of his like model that he frames the book after, they have a tipping point. But before that point, things are gradually changing and it's very incremental, and change is happening very slowly, and you're going and you're going and you're going, and it's very slow and hard to even notice. And then there's a certain point where you start gaining momentum. That's the tipping point, where then things start getting smoother, easier, faster, quicker, more efficient, whatever your adjective is, right? So I wanted to pull that example because I feel like it kind of lends legitimacy to the concept of what I'm saying, even though it doesn't apply directly to skills. Sorry, I was just reminded by another book that I think he wrote about like the 10,000 hours or 100,000 hours or whatever to gain like efficiency in something or mastery in something. But I can't remember what that's called right now. So that might have been a better example, but that's not the book I just read. So welcome to my brain. Point being, it is normal to be bad at something when you're first starting it and to need time to incrementally, slowly progress and get better at that thing. Okay? So, wherever this concept of if you pick up something new and you're supposed to be immediately good at it, otherwise it's just not for you, throw it away. I hate it. I don't know where it came from. Not a fan. People who can just like pick up something new and be great at it, I love that for them. I don't think that's like most of our experience, which is crazy because apparently it's an ADHD thing, and I did not get that kind of ADHD. So low-key jelly, but regardless, give yourself permission to fail. Give yourself permission to be seen trying. Give yourself permission to be seen caring. Give yourself permission to be bad at something in public or in front of people if you have to. Okay? I feel like these days, there's so much pressure to like share your story, which I think is super powerful. Share your story on social media. You obviously want like friends and family involved in your life, right? So it can be it can be kind of by necessity that we're learning in public, and that can be really hard and really scary. That is one of my least favorite things to do. I will tell you right now. So I get that absolutely. And I think that we don't have to. I think that the more willing we are to be seen trying, even if we end up failing, or even if we end up not doing well in that moment, I think that gives us the most potential to learn and grow and get better at that thing to succeed in the future. Because if you're always adding on the layer of secrecy and hiding and not wanting to be perceived, then it's like a whole other layer of difficulty on top of the original task that you're working at and that you're trying to learn. Okay. So, sorry, I just saw my other bullet point and I actually really like it, even though I don't feel like there's a good segue. So I'm just going to throw it out there. The obsession with effortless isn't realistic. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, but I think it's another like deeper point. even like, makeup looks or fashion looks. Like we want to look so effortless and effortlessly cool and effortlessly chic and effortlessly na 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 and effortlessly beautiful. Very unrealistic for most of us. Some people are effortlessly beautiful, and I love that for them. And some things we are effortlessly good at. Like some things just come really naturally to us. And unfortunately, it's usually those things that we don't give ourselves credit for because it comes so naturally to us. But all of your life is not supposed to be effortless, I don't believe. I think that there is value in putting some effort in, and I think that it's actually very normal. It's necessary the vast majority of the time. Effort. I believe. So I know that like along with this, being seen trying is embarrassing. Then there's also like another factor of effortless is like the goal that we're supposed to be working toward. And I don't think that's realist. I don't think that's realistic at all. So those are my 2 points that my sub bullets for talking about fear of failure. Okay. So we've got just the overwhelm of how much there is to do and grief over not starting sooner. We've got the fear of failure that holds us back, and then a fear of success also holds us back. This is something that didn't I didn't realize was one of my issues until like recently, a couple years ago, maybe a few years ago. Um, yeah, because I think we know that there's like a responsibility to success. And I think it can be a really scary, heavy feeling. And then I also believe that a lot of the time we don't really process it through. And so we just kind of keep it as this vague fear. I think a lot of us don't even realize we're afraid of success. But that question, I believe, is lingering in the back of our mind of what does this mean if this actually takes off? If I start a business and then I actually have a business and I have people ordering things from me or scheduling coaching with me or wanting me to finish my book, then I actually have to do the thing. I actually have to show up. I actually have to have a standard of excellence in what I do. I actually have to keep caring. I actually have to follow through. I might even need to have some processes put in place. And then I have to worry about all these people doing business with me. And then what if someone hates it? What if somebody has a complaint? What if? And so all these things, I think a lot of that time it's fear of success because we know we don't like to admit it, but we know like, oh my gosh, if this takes off the way I want it to, that's going to be a lot. It's going to be, a lot of work or a lot of fulfillment or a lot of commitment or whatever it is. But I also want to tie that back into our fear of failure, right? Of being seen trying and slow progress. Sometimes things will take off overnight and it's crazy and it's, a huge boom and you have to figure out either, you're gonna wait list or pull in employees all of a sudden and, bust out orders or you're going to have to limit availability or sometimes it does happen where it's a big boom overnight and that's a lot. I would say like I think that's what a lot of us think we want, but in reality it's a lot to deal with. So I want us to use that as the flip side of our fear of failure and be like, maybe it's nice to be able to grow slowly and to be able to make mistakes only in front of a smaller audience and to be able to learn as I grow and get better at things as I go and kind of practice having, one or two customers at a time instead of a whole horde of people. Okay. So kind of flipping our fear of success and our fear of failure and be like, those kind of cancel out. So we can just be happy with where we're at and be grateful to start small, right? But I do think that fear of success is a real thing. I think it's super valid. I also deal with that, so very valid, I believe. So I want to encourage you that it's really cross that bridge when you get there. There's only so much you can do to set yourself up. There are only so many realistic scenarios that you can prepare for, that you probably should prepare for, so that you still have time to do the thing. Because we can sit here and prepare for every possible scenario, and then instead of actually launching the business or starting writing your book or doing the thing, you're just preparing for everything that could go wrong. And you could do that forever, right? There are an innumerable amount of scenarios that you could prepare for. You could spend all your time preparing for what could go wrong or what could go right. And so there has to be a point where you tell yourself, I am prepared enough, and anything else, I'm just going to figure out, cross that bridge when I get there. I'm going to figure it out as I go. I'm going to learn on the job, and we're going to get started and we're going to see what happens. Okay. And I do think that there's probably some rules of thumb out there. I don't know offhand, but I also think that a lot of that is going to be personal and up to you of what level of an uncertainty you can handle and still be okay and move forward, right? But you don't have to prepare for everything. Because there's no way that you can. So decide what is prepared enough and then go with that. I mean, and some people just fly by the seat of their pants and they don't really prepare for any alternate scenarios and they just figure it out as they go and they blow my mind because that terrifies me. But see, we're all different. So everybody's going to have a different level of comfort and function, not just comfort, but even like ability to function in the face of different amounts of uncertainty. So I'm going to leave that in your court, and that's going to be up to you. But also, you don't have to do the thing for forever. If you end up hating it, you can quit. Or if something gets too big to where you don't like it anymore, like if we're still talking about fear of success, if something gets so out of control, it's so blown up, maybe you're becoming famous and you don't want to, like you don't have to keep doing the thing. You can sell the business, you can quit, you can hire other people and take a back seat, like whatever it is, you don't have to do it forever. Okay? From an integrity standpoint, I would strongly encourage you to like follow through on your commitments. But if something takes off and becomes like has a mind of its own and it's so out of control and it's not what you want anymore, you can let it go. Sometimes things, this is like a bonus point. Sometimes things we think are an end goal are actually just a stepping stone to get to a different place that we never thought we were going to end up going. Okay, so this isn't really like the topic of the podcast today, but yeah, sometimes what we think is going to be like our forever career or life or dream, sometimes once we get to that point and we kind of level up and we expand like ourselves and have a better relationship with who we are and who we want to be, sometimes we realize like what we thought was end game was actually just a phase, just a stepping stone, just a season, and we're actually moving into something completely different or, pivoting a little bit, whatever. And so that's okay. So I want to encourage you, you can always quit. Like if something gets out of control, if your fear of success comes true and you hate the success or you hate what comes with it, or you end up hating what you originally loved, right? You're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to switch it up. You're allowed to hire somebody else to do it for you. You're allowed to, sell the business, whatever. You're allowed to quit. You don't, I think that is, for me, one of the biggest things that ties into my fear of success is worrying about this is what the rest of my life is going to look like. And it doesn't have to, it can be a season. Okay, so I want to encourage you when you've decided to take that step and you're trying to figure out, like, why can't I get myself to take this action? It might be that just overwhelm. And so I want to encourage you if you have to grieve not starting sooner and you're overwhelmed by how much there is still left to do, try to give yourself that grace because there's a reason that you weren't able to do it before. And whatever it is, it's okay. We're here now. Okay. And you can only do what you can do now. Fear of failure. I want you to give yourself permission to be seen trying, to be seen caring, to admit that you give a shit about something. Admit that you give a shit. Let's put that on a t-shirt, right? Give yourself that permission. It's actually not normal for everything to be effortless and for you to immediately be good at everything you try. Those are superstars, okay? Most of the time, we have to work and try at things and gradually become better. And you are a human, and so you are allowed to not be good at something right away. You are allowed to give yourself time to try and to get better incrementally. And then lastly, if it's a fear of success, I want to encourage you that you are very capable of figuring out what you need to do next. You're going to grow into that role as you keep taking those steps. And I fully trust that you'll be able to figure out how to handle your success as it comes. And if you don't want to, or you can't, or whatever the situation is, you don't have to keep doing it. You're allowed to change your dreams. You're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to do something else with your life, okay? Okay, those are the three things that I wanted to highlight, some themes that have come up in my life and my clients, and just kind of challenges that we don't necessarily think of right away when we're trying to pinpoint what it is that is keeping us from doing something that we thought we wanted to do. So I hope this helps. As always, I'm here for you. So if you have questions or want a follow-up conversation, whatever it is, please always feel free to reach out to me. I am at the Fierce Framework on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. My email is confidence at thefierceframework.net. Speaking of email, I would love to send you my little love letters every Saturday morning. And so I'll include a link in the description if you want to sign up for those so that you can get my additional little bits of encouragement and insight that I've learned as throughout the week. All right. Well, I thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you so soon. Until then, keep becoming fierce.